Now, let's take a look at something interesting. How can we use this access token to authorize a resource? So to authorize it, we'll use a Lambda function that we're going to create in the Amazon Web Services console. This console needs to be configured with a user that has the necessary permissions to create Lambda functions with a basic role. When we create our function, here, we'll name it here jot lambda authorizer, and we'll install it using a zip file that we previously downloaded. This file, it's attached to the tutorial here. Okay, so the zip is done, and we'll publish it immediately. And this function uses the Node.js runtime environment, version 8.10. And now let's configure some environment variables for the authorizer here. Some of these environment variables are required. For example, the URL of our JSON Web Token key set. Okay. That we can get with the configuration of our integration in Modyo. We can find it in Settings, Integration, OpenID Connect, and copy the URL of the JSON Web Token key set here. Paste it in there. And another variable that we should set is permitted claims. This variable allows us to pass user contextual information to the Lambda functions or upstream services of the gateway. In this case, we're going to pass the name given name, the surname family name, we're also going to pass the email here, and the claim we saw from our previous module called segment. So these variables are optional, but it's useful to not have to make additional requests to get context from the user. Okay, another optional variable is the resource. In this case, if the resource is to be authorized, and we're going to authorize any resource involving our API gateway. So if we want to do this, we need an ARN number of our resource. So we can get this in our API gateway and just go to any of our resources. We copy its ARN, and we only need this first part, and it's going to allow us to authorize basically any resource that's inside of our API gateway. So in this case, this variable, if it's not set by default, then the authorizer will authorize basically any required resource. However, in this case, it won't be possible to cache the policy because basically only specific resources are going to be authorized. So that means for each request, a different resource is going to be authorized. And so finally, the other variable that we want to use is strict SSL. And we want to leave this as false because we are working in a development environment right now. In addition to all of this, we need to establish the role with which our Lambda function is actually going to be executed. So what this means is that we need a user role in Amazon Web Services that has the minimum necessary permissions in order to function correctly. So we can get that in the management console. So we can look for some of our users who have this role. Let's click on roles here. Okay, here we have the role, and we can copy it. And finally, the handler. In this case, it's the default handler, index.handler. All right, and so here it looks like we used a double quote at the beginning of our permitted claims by accident. So let's just fix this. There we go. Okay, great. Okay, so now we've created the authorizer Lambda function, and now we can go to the Amazon Web Services console and test our authorizer. So we create an authorizer. We choose the Lambda function. We establish where we'll have the token, in our case through the authorization header. We can establish a cache policy, and we can set our TTL to only 1 minute. And we've created our function. To test our authorizer, we can get a token from Modyo with our API. Let's open here, the access token. Okay, so we take the token, go back to the API Gateway console here, click test, and pass the authorization header as a bearer token here. Okay, we paste it in here and click test. Okay, click test again, and we had this response code 200, and we have a policy that allows the invocation of any endpoint. This is for any resource within the API gateway. Now we're going to authorize our resources. So in this case, we can go to credit cards, method requests, authorization. We select our authorizer. We go to the other endpoint, movement, method request. We select our authorizer. Make sure that we save the change. And now we just need to deploy our API. In this case, we have a stage called development. These changes take a few seconds to apply, but we can use Postman to test that our endpoints are no longer completely public and that they will require authorization. So as we can see, since I don't have the header authorization, I basically have an unauthorized result. I don't have access to this. And now we can try setting the header authorization correctly. So let's go to our token endpoint and copy the access token again. And this time, what we want to do is we want to pass this as a header, a type to an authorization. Oh, yeah, we want to go to headers here. Okay. Authorization. And again, so this is a bearer and our token. And now, as you can see, our endpoint is authorized and working.